So we've been watching a bunch of Canadian TV shows lately. We did Littlest Hobo and Corner Gas, and now we're going to go on to Schitt's Creek. And yeah, I've been kind of gaining a little bit of respect for Canadian TV lately, catching up on some of these shows. It's like there's a certain sensibility to Canadian stuff that's not that bad. Like I mentioned last week about Letterkenny, just as far as like dry humor, comparing it to Corner Gas. But I never really watched much of that show, so I started watching a little more of it over the week, and very weird, just weird. Like there is this sense of I am starting to understand what Canadians have to bring to the table, I guess. Even as a Canadian, I'm like, who needs Canadian stuff? But there is certainly a feeling to Canadian shows that is unique. And I don't know anything about Schitt's Creek except that it's very famous and very popular. So I'm expecting to get a little more Canadian education this week. What can you tell me about Schitt's Creek?
I love Schitt's Creek. It's just this snotty, wealthy family who loses their money and have to go and live in some little rural motel out in who knows where, somewhere out in the West or in Canada. I don't know if this will be in the shows that you watch, but as you approach the town or the village or whatever it is of Schitt's Creek, there is a great big welcome poster along the side of the road of where there was mining going on originally when Schitt's Creek started. And it's just so understated. Here's a welcome to Schitt's Creek, and you've got this beautiful, beautiful woman, probably from about the 1880s or the 1890s, and she's leaning over into the creek as if she's panning for gold. And this gentleman, we don't know who he is, if he's another miner or her husband or whatever, but he's standing right behind her and definitely looks like he's poking her. And it is just this great big giant billboard, welcome to Schitt's Creek. I mean, it's just the name Schitt's Creek. I mean, where the heck did they come up with that? Beautiful, right? And of course, it's got big name stars like Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy and his son. The characterization is so excellent, and because everybody is different in it, even though they're wealthy, you don't put them all in a great big group of wealthy people because they each have such distinct characters. And of course, then when they go into the town of Schitt's Creek, of course, it's very so typical of what we think of when outsiders come in. The town might be happy to you, but or nice to you, decent to you, but you don't belong, and you will never belong. And they make that so obvious in Schitt's Creek. Everything is very understated and very, very well played, though. Nothing is like just in your face. And that's what makes it such a great piece of writing and a great piece of viewing.
It's always just nice too, just for there to be a success, because my only knowledge of this show is literally just from seeing posters and stuff. But that happens every season, like it just happened now that I was traveling around and I came back to Canada. So I'm back in Toronto temporarily. And, you get on the subway and there's just posters everywhere, or bus stops, here's all the new shows. But why pay attention? Who cares? It's just the new whatever show that'll just be here for 8 weeks and it'll disappear and get canceled and whatever. And I remember Schitt's Creek was one of those. I guess it's 2015 that it started. I remember seeing the posters all around Canada. And obviously Eugene Levy, he's got to be one of the most beloved Canadians, because like to your generation and to my generation and probably to the generation after me, because he was the dad in the American Pie movies. Everybody loves Eugene Levy. So I was like, oh, that's cool. He's in a show. But I still had that same thought of like, but whatever, it's just going to be another one of these shows that gets canceled and who cares? But it never got canceled. It just kept hanging around and everybody kept talking about how great it is. So even though I've never seen it, that's just nice. That's a nice feeling, that a show made it, that a show actually was successful and popular.
And it's different than Corner Gas in the sense that those characters were introduced to us and they really always stayed the same from the beginning of that show to the end of that show. They were the same people with not a whole lot of growth. But Schitt's Creek, they really grew from the original people that they were. There were a lot of changes in their characters and in their development. And I think that's part of the reason why it continued on for so long, because it kept changing. Although the premise was still the same, they kept changing so that ultimately they do fit into that town.
Yeah, so I did look up just the very vaguest. I didn't look up too much stuff because I would still kind of like to go into it, not knowing too much. But the basics are that it ran from 2015 to 2020. And this is one thing that seems like a good sign. Instead of like a show that is desperate to just stay on the air and desperate to do whatever to keep going, this felt like the opposite, where I guess after the first 4 seasons, they were ready to wrap it up. And they had to be convinced by the TV network to make more. So they're like, yeah, okay, okay. And they made a couple more seasons. But it's like they didn't want to just milk it for everything that it could. They just wanted it to end while it was good. And then they agreed to a little more, but they still like capped it off on purpose at a purposeful time. So that's a good sign. And it appears that the basic idea came from kind of two places at once, where part of it was the son, who is Dan Levy is his name,
Dan Levy, yes.
that he had an idea for, he was watching reality shows like the Kardashians and stuff, and he was thinking like, what if these people lost their fortunes? Like, would they be the same people? What would happen at that point? And at the same time, his mother was just recalling this thing. I'd never heard about this, but apparently this really happened. That Kim Basinger, at one point, she bought an entire town. She bought a small town because she thought her Hollywood friends could come there and film things there. And she was like, oh, this will be great. And it was a huge financial disaster and it didn't work at all. So they kind of combined the two ideas of rich people losing their money and just being in this little weird town that they probably shouldn't be in, and combined it together to make this show. So that's all I know, but that's the little bit that I learned. Oh, and the name also, that of course, I don't know. That's one thing I can't quite get a handle on about Canadians. Like, are we demure or not? Like on the surface, we seem that way, but then you get like Trailer Park Boys, or even watching these Letterkenny episodes. I'm like, man, this is dirty sometimes. Like this is like, So, but apparently, Schitt's Creek was a little bit much for the network. They're like, can we change the name? We can't put these posters all over the subway in Toronto. But the Levies, and Catherine O'Hara and all them, they like basically pleaded their case. They're like, look, here's a Toronto phone book. Look how many people's last name is Schitt. It's just a name. So get over it. And the network is like, all right, fine. But it reminded me of a similar story where Kevin Smith's made a lot of bad movies, but one of his bad movies was called Zack and Miri Make a Porno. And he said in hindsight, he's like, I shouldn't have called it that. That did not help the bottom line. Like sometimes these names get in the way. But I guess, I don't know, Schitt's Creek is fairly, it's a funny name, but I feel like it's fine. It's not an offensive title.
Well, even if it is, it's very catchy. It grabs you.
Yeah, because even just in that sense, yeah, as far as, if I'm just walking by a poster, down in the subway, I'm going to recognize Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara. But yeah, the name doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to draw you in.
Oh, no. If you see that name, your eyes are going to stick right in. Does that say in Shits? This is the Shits. Is that really saying that?
Goodness me. And yeah, my monocle flies off. So I grabbed the first 2 episodes, just, instead of just watching one, I figure I might as well get the first 2 under my belt just to get a little bit of a better sense of the show. So if anyone wants to watch along with us, go dig up Schitt's Creek episode 1 and episode 2, because that's what we're going to watch.
The following program contains scenes with coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
He's in the bathroom. He won't leave.
Well, he's been in there for a very long time. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Boy. Remind me to get that window fixed. It will not open.
Roland, listen, thank you very much, but appreciate everything you've done. We need a little private time now, as a family.
Sure. Well, actually, those curtains do close there, so. Oh, look. You've got Channel 19.
Roland, could you get the fuck out?
Well, what did you think?
I definitely liked how fast, man, they did not mess around. It was less than 3 minutes in before they were arriving in Schitt's Creek. And I respected that because it's like a ludicrous setup, but like weirdly believable in a dumb way that they lost all their money from like a financial manager that they don't trust, which I mean, that happens all the time. I just heard the other day about, I don't know if you know him, but this comedian Dane Cook, who his brother was his financial advisor and just fleeced him for millions and millions and millions of dollars and went to jail. And it's like, damn, your own brother. So, I mean, so that's believable. But then that the only asset they have left is this town. And I loved the reason why they own the town is because it was a joke. You know, back in the day, the dad thought it would be funny to buy his son a crappy town. And they're like, yeah, we just assumed that you photoshopped the deed or something. Like, why would you actually buy the town? And he's like, well, it wouldn't be a joke if I didn't buy the town. Like, it's just so.
Well, and obviously they had so much money that they could buy a town, and it was never talked about. It was never an issue. Whatever the cost of that town was like peanuts because they had so much money until they ran out of money and then they found out what it was really like.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a great example of just being so totally out of touch with how anything normal works. It kind of made me think of, I don't know, maybe it's a show we could watch to connect to this, but the show Arrested Development, where there's like a famous line where the rich mom, you know, because she's so out of touch with everything, is like, I don't know, a carton of milk, what could that cost? $20, $30? You know, because they just have no sense of how anything works. So it right away definitely establishes this family as that type of family of like, they don't know how anything in the real world works. And yeah, it's just an absurd concept that they own this town because of some half-assed joke that, again, even as a joke, it's not that funny. It's just a weird, dumb thing to do.
I hadn't thought about this when I first saw this show, but while I'm watching it this time, I'm thinking, I think one reason why this show is so popular is that every small town has got a motel like that. And they've got those tailgate parties where everybody just goes and hangs and drinks beer off the back of their trucks in the dark. And there's nothing fancy. You go to somebody's house, and the hors d'oeuvres are cheesies in a fondue pot that he's putting his hands in, and there's no class at all. But every small community has got a place like that, and it doesn't have to be wherever this is located in the West. It can be in the East, in central Canada. It can be in the United States. It can be everywhere.
Well, it made me think too just how relative all this stuff is, where, yeah, to them, having to move to this town and staying in the motel, like to them, it's unfathomably, crappy to them. But to me, I find places like that, like, kind of nice. Like, I like them. Like, it made me think of when I was visiting South Korea. I just always stayed wherever I could that was cheap. So I stayed in these places in Seoul where it's like a little tiny room that is like literally smaller than a prison. And there was like one shower facility for like 30 rooms, And it was fine. We made it work, and it was like $16 a day. But compared to that, when I went to visit Jeju Island and I stayed at an actual hotel, it was like a hotel like that, like the first thing I noticed when I went in was like somebody had killed mosquitoes on the wall and the cleaning staff didn't scrape off the dead mosquito bugs. But compared to where I had just been, I'm like, this is nice. So it's all relative. But yeah, it's understandable how to them it's just a nightmare.
But even that motel is so common every place. Like when he goes in and he wants eggs Florentine and some fancy yogurt parfait for breakfast, and she says, oh, we just can't provide that service, but we do have our coffee bar over there, and you're welcome to that. And you look over, and sure, there's the coffee machine on and a couple of paper cups. And how many motels have got that?
And yeah, it's interesting too that, obviously I'd have to watch a lot more to see things progress more. But in those first couple episodes, it really felt like the star of the show. This was unexpected to me. Was that Chris Elliott guy that we were saying, like, we recognize him from a million things, the guy who plays the mayor of the town. He seemed like the star of the whole show. He was definitely the main character of the first couple episodes. And like, you just have to respect an actor who, because he does tend to play those types of roles, but this is like way over the top of like, he is just the most obnoxious. Well, I guess that's another thing that I thought was interesting is how much the landscape of TV has changed. Because I remember, like, it was such a big deal probably in the early 90s, I'm going to say it was, when there was that cop show that showed somebody's butt. LAPD Blue or whatever, and you get to see this guy's butt, and it was the first male butt on TV, and that was a big deal. And then South Park did this episode where you were now allowed to say the word bitch on TV. So they made it into a plot where they say bitch so many times that it summons Satan, and they have like a counter on screen for how many times they said it. Like just that, these little incremental changes of what's allowed on TV. Where at this point, I did see the warning at the start that said, warning, the following show could contain crude language. But it shocked me when the mayor he won't leave the motel. He's just in their way. And then when Eugene Levy just goes, "Will you get the fuck out of here?" Like, I did not expect that at all. I was like, I didn't know TV shows could do that now. But yeah, that's just a normal ass Canadian show now. You can say that.
And Eugene Levy says "son of a bitch" as an expression, like, "oh crap, I don't want to be here," sort of that kind of expression. Son of a bitch, son of a bitch. And at one point, Catherine O'Hara is talking about the daughter who just wants to flit off with Stavros. And she says, "I never thought my daughter would become a something whore." They're like, what? Like, they don't mince words at all. They speak very much like Joe Q. Public would speak. There's no fudging words or trying to just cover up and be. They are trying to be pleasant, but when they get frustrated, there's no holding back.
Yeah, that's actually where Corner Gas, in some ways, is kind of the odd man out because of these shows we've been watching lately, like Trailer Park Boys, full of swearing. Like I was saying, I've been watching Letterkenny. They'll occasionally break out a pretty harsh swear. This show has swearing. Like Corner Gas is more and more really starting to seem like a very what a charming show for grandma, compared to these other shows. I also had never seen, actually, I didn't know who Dan Levy was. I didn't know Eugene Levy had a kid, but apparently I just did a quick search. I guess he kind of rose to a little bit of prominence because he was on MTV Canada, I guess, which, I aged out of watching, the music television channels. But that is a handsome lad. I'd never seen him before.
He's got those eyebrows like Eugene, though. Those great, big, thick black eyebrows.
And it's just nice to see Catherine O'Hara, too. She has not lost a step. She feels exactly like she did in SCTV. And I noticed that with, while I was traveling, the Beetlejuice sequel came out, Beetlejuice. And it was the one movie I went to see. I went to see it when I was in Taipei just because Beetlejuice was my favorite movie when I was in first grade. But it was no good. I did not enjoy the sequel, except she's in it. And yeah, even though she's 70 years old now, she hasn't missed a step, and she was the best part of that movie. And it's just it's nice in some ways to see, because we used to watch SCTV all the time when I was a kid, and just yeah, everybody's older now, but I feel like they're as good now as they ever were.
And Annie Murphy as the daughter, I think, is excellent. This girl, as far as I know, was not an actress or pertaining to be an actress, whatever, and just auditioned for that show and got the part. But as far as coming across as like a little rich girl who lived in an entirely different world than this world she lives in now, very spoiled and given everything she ever wanted. I mean, she's perfect for it. She's just so perfect. And she's always doing that little flick with the hair.
Yeah, and I think watching these first two episodes was good. Obviously, watching a big batch would, obviously give me a much better sense of the show overall. But those first two were good because, like I said, it established the setup really quickly. And then the second episode kind of gives you the roadmap of literally all they have left is this town. So they're like, hey, if we can just sell this town, we'll be all right again. We can get back to being a rich family. But, it becomes pretty clear that they were idiots to buy it in the first place. No one's going to buy this goddamn town. So that's kind of the general goal, just so there's some kind of a sense of what the shape of this show is try to shape up this town like a fixer-upper, except it's a whole town, and just see if they can flip it, see if they can do something with it. And it's nice too to have that idea of the landscape instead of just a general show where they're just hanging around with no particular motivation. So yeah, I'm glad we watched the first two.
And they've introduced that character, Roland, the mayor. You get a little sense at the end that this is a guy who's not willing to give up his power, which is part of his obnoxiousness. But when the Roses are leaving his house after they've gotten the contract signed, and he says, "This is my town," and then he ha 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 ha, just joking, just joking. But he's not joking.
Yeah.
He's serious. It is his town.
One thing these shows have been making me think about as well is, even though we're in the digital age now and you can get stuff on streaming and whatever, I don't really know how people find TV shows anymore. Like, I kind of feel like the age of channel surfing is not as over as people think, because that's how I missed all of these shows. Like, I missed Corner Gas because I moved to Vancouver and I didn't have a computer. I missed Schitt's Creek because I guess at this point, mid 2000s, I was back in Vancouver. I had left Toronto, but just because I'm just like a hobo who doesn't have I never have proper TV or anything. But that's how I would have seen all these shows, is just flipping through channels. I assume that's how most people still found them. How does anybody find TV shows these days, if they're not flipping through channels? Like, I assume that's how you came across these shows, right? I know you've recently cut the cord, you've cut your cable, but you did have it until recently.
Yeah, I guess, I would have been flicking channels, too lazy to get up off the couch if I couldn't find the remote, too lazy to get up off the couch, and it would be on, and I'd watch it. And of course, they're in so many reruns now that if anybody, I don't know, I guess that's, and now if you want to watch like the whole series, you know what time it's on, and you just click, 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 find it, and every night you watch it, one right after the other.
Yeah, I just think maybe it's, because people do talk about how, like, oh, it's so much better now. Now you can just watch exactly what you want to watch and seek out the shows that you want, and you're not just passively sitting, being fed shows. But I don't know, I didn't hate it. I didn't mind channel surfing. Like, you really do stumble upon a lot of stuff that you might not otherwise necessarily seek out. But I don't know. I have some nostalgia for those days. I think it was all right. I think it was an okay way to find TV shows.
See, and TV always had a way of catching you too, because if you tuned into a show that you wanted to watch, you knew what time it was on, you turned it on. Before you got to the end of the show, an ad would come on to tell you what the next show would be. So then, of course, you had just finished watching the show you wanted to watch, but now you'd watch the next show. Because it wouldn't just say the name of the show. They would have a little spiel that would catch you and make you want to watch it. Or well, maybe I'll check that out. And then you would, and then you'd be caught.
Yeah, and it just kind of, I don't know, it feels nice to catch up on these shows now. Now to just to have that little bit of grounding of like, oh, I do know a little more about what these shows are beyond just a poster that I saw at a bus stop somewhere. It almost feels like my Canadian duty. like I should have some sense of what's going on the airwaves, or at least what was going on the airwaves, I guess at this point 10 years ago. But yeah, I really am out of the loop, so it's nice. It's nice to catch up on these things.
All in all, it holds up. It's excellent. It's an excellent show. And didn't you get the feeling that every character is different? There's no overlapping here. Everybody is their own little person, and even the real estate agent, Ray, a weird little character. Everybody really stands out as individual people.
And it is a nice balance too of, it's so easy to just kind of make fun of the hillbilly town. But to counterbalance it, it's like, yeah, well, these rich people are certainly no better, in their own different way. They might be worse. They probably are worse. So you get that the nice two sides of the coin.
I loved the part, too, where they had the leaking roof and they couldn't get the plumber in to fix. So all you do is just move the bed against the wall and put the bucket there to catch this putrid water that's coming through the roof.
Just that, too, that sense of people just kind of not being competent or not being good at their jobs, which would be especially galling if you're the Rose family, because they're really used to everyone having their shit together. But even just this shit-ass Airbnb that I'm staying at in Toronto, there was a fuse box problem or something in my room where the outlets for this one room weren't working. So I had to plug my laptop in out in the hallway or whatever. And I'm just a weirdo because I had just traveled. I don't have an actual phone number. I don't have a proper phone. I have to do things through the internet. So I messaged through the internet the people who run this property, and I just mentioned that. I was like, hey, just so you know, there's something going on here. I don't know what it is. So they messaged me back the phone number of a building maintenance guy. So I messaged them back and I'm like, hey, sorry, I just got in from overseas. Like, I don't have a phone number. I can't contact this person, even though this is already like, why are you making me do your job? Why are you giving me the number? And then that still wasn't enough. The lady messaged me back again and was like, well, you can get this app called WhatsApp and you can use it as a phone. So now she wants me to get an app I've never used and figure out how that works. So I just messaged back, how about you do it? This is not my building. And there was no more answer after that, but somebody came and fixed the thing. And it's just like, just do your fucking job, It's so annoying. And yeah, if you, on top of that, yeah, you're the super entitled rich family. Like you can kind of, as obnoxious as the Rose family are, you can kind of sympathize in that sense of like, man, now all of a sudden you're just in this place where nothing is proper, nothing is working right. And it's like, even for Schitt's Creek, it shouldn't be this bad. But it is. You show up and your door is missing off your fucking place,
Yeah, or your plumber. You got a massive leak. Yes, the plumber is in rehab or in jail or wherever the heck he is, but get another plumber. But no, let's just put the bucket there. As I said, every place has got a place like the Schitt's Creek Motel.
Yeah.